Um, I think I'm gonna play some music. Yeah, and I'm gonna put some better lighting on. It just shows how much people prepare when they go live and why when people come onto a live stream with a bunch of affectations, crying or whatnot, it's so fake. Because look, you gotta find the right place to sit or stand or whatever, or if you're walking, whatever. You gotta have good lighting. You gotta make sure the sound is good. You gotta do like a ton of things, and that's why it's so fake when that little dumb itch starts with a bit, ends with an itch. Selena Gomez was crying about the illegal immigrants being deported. First of all, the priority of people being deported were actually criminals. So if you're crying over people who unalive and assault people, you have a problem. Did he say he would get to all of them? Yes, but let's just say numerically that is going to be a very challenging thing. So the priority was to get people who were actually either convicted of crimes or unwanted or wanted for crimes in their own countries out of here. So if that's neither here nor there, even well, for whatever reason, someone might be having affectations on the live stream. It's fake. I'm sorry, and she's an actress, so you know it's fake. um, and that's why she got clowned and she removed the video because it looks fake. Like I said, and then like depending on the live stream, this is a vertical live, so it doesn't take that much to prepare. But if this was like one of those PC live streams, or when one of the ones that use a third party app to go live, you got to do a lot of stuff. Or IG live, you got to do a lot of stuff before you go live, which is why that whole thing with was it Shannon Sharp or whatever his name is, yeah, um when he claimed that he went live by accident having sex. Come on, no one's going live accidentally having sex. He did that on purpose to make people so that people wouldn't think he wasn't gay anymore because of all his little foo foo stuff he's been doing as of late. I'm just gonna tell you how it is. What's up, Thunder? Not saying the first part. Um, so anyway, I was just saying that because, like I said, I'm preparing for you guys, setting up this live stream, and this is just a really informal vertical live, and I still have to do stuff before I set up and go live. So imagine someone on a real, like, uh, PC live stream setting up a bunch of protocols, and then they just happen at that moment to be crying at the right moment for everyone to be like, oh, she's really upset about the whole whatever, whatever. No, it's fake. A lot of things about social media are fake. Um, but that's not going to be the content of this conversation, though. This actually is to piggyback. Sorry, I'm just doing some stuff. Um, this is to piggyback on my previous live stream. If you guys didn't catch it, please go ahead and check it out. Where um, I talk about the history of martial arts. What's up, AAA? Hey, Crystal. Um, so I talked about the history of martial arts. And I basically said most of the history of martial arts is a lie. It's made. It's most of it is just marketing to get people interested in those styles, but uh, especially traditional martial arts. A lot of it, a lot of the interest that comes with traditional martial arts comes through the promotions of its history, and most of that history is just bullshit. Spoiler alert. So, um, and what do I mean? Yes, I do martial arts. You can check out some of my previous videos if you guys are asking. Um, so so like I said, a lot of it's just BS. Like for one, a lot of people think martial arts comes from Asia. No, it doesn't. Martial arts is in literally every civilization. What's up? Um, the indigenous people of the Americas had martial arts. The people of the African continent had martial arts. The people of Europe had martial arts. People of Asia had martial arts. The people of Ocean, is it? I never know if you pronounce it Oceania or Oceania. But anyway, that's Australia, New Zealand, and all those Pacific islands that make up that region, Oceania or Oceania, however you pronounce it. They had martial arts. Everybody had martial arts because everyone fought. It was a part of the human condition that we fight. The male physiology has literally evolved to fight. That's literally why we look the way we do. This is why we're stronger than women. We're faster than women. We're more agile than women because we were literally built to fight each other. So every human civilization has had martial arts. Um, and the first martial art to ever arise has been wrestling. The first known civilization, Sumeria, and all the other accompanying Mesopotamian civilizations have a history of wrestling. Um, and that goes, and we see it in other nearby Mediterranean civilizations as well, in Egypt, okay, in Greece and Rome, and other parts of Central Asia and Northern Europe. Um, Boxing was the next one to come about. Not boxing in the way that we think of today as Western boxing. Boxing then would have been more brutal. It would have been more like dirty boxing, what we call dirty boxing today. But they had boxing back then. Um, and those two got combined in ancient Greece in the early Olympics. They constructed the first hybrid martial art. So hybrid martial arts didn't start with MMA. In fact, I mean, this is why Jeet Kune Do is often called the father of MMA, because a lot of the principles and cross training and all the sort of stuff they do in MMA can be directly traced back to Jeet Kune Do. Not to mention um, the shoot fighting events of Japan. But there was the first hybrid martial art started in ancient Greece called Pancration, which was like a mixture of wrestling and boxing. And it has been recently they revived the ancient practice. Just like I'm guessing about 25, 30 years ago. Some folks decided to revive the ancient practice and modernize it, sort of the same way with European martial arts from medieval Europe has been revived by looking at the ancient medieval texts on fighting, and that has become known now as HEMA, which is historically European martial arts. Often, though, people will criticize them, saying basically that they're just doing LARPing, LARPing being live action role playing games. But be that as it may, again, we have martial arts everywhere. People don't even know even the Africans brought a martial art here to America. Foundational Black Americans, or Black American, what are actual Black Americans, aside from Black immigrants from the Caribbean and Africa. Black Americans had their own martial art too, called knocking and kicking. That came out of the Carolinas. People don't know that. Yes, Black people had their own martial art. So when they always say, I don't know karate, but I know crazy, they were actually telling the truth. They called it knocking and kicking because it was a fighting game. It was originally a fighting game that consisted of headbutting, punching, and kicking. Sounds a bit brutal. Um, I'm not doing any tricks unless someone's dropping a cash app or sending me a super sending me a super sticker or super chat. I don't do that. I'm not here to perform. If If people want to see my martial arts proclivities, they can see some of my other videos where I have demonstrated some skills. So, anywho, so I went on to talk about some of these myths that have been propagated as martial arts history. So one is which I've already shown is not true, is that martial arts started in Asia. No, it didn't. Every civilization had their own martial art. Two was that Chinese martial arts all started from the Shaolin Temple. That's not true. The whole myth that there was this Indian Buddhist monk named Bodhidharma that came over to China and trained the Shaolin monks in these rigorous exercises so that they wouldn't fall asleep during their meditation practices is just BS. They were already Chinese martial arts that existed before Shaolin. Okay. Um, what was it? So so basically, guys, I'm just rehashing what I brought in from last time, and then I'm gonna go on straight to what I'm talking about today because they do relate. The topic today is McDojos and how to spot them, and part of knowing about McDojos is knowing that they propagate these myths about martial arts. But that is the topic today: McDojos and how to spot them. And I'll explain what a McDojo is in a second. But any case, um, another common myth was that karate was created by Okinawan peasants to fight the samurai who came to invade Okinawa. No, they didn't. First of all, first of all, Okinawa had their own kingdoms, the Rikikyu kingdoms, and farmers then would not have had 3 or 4 hours a day to set aside to practice martial arts. That's just BS. They were farmers in a during pre-modern civilization, pre like prior to the Industrial Revolution. There was no machine. They didn't have machinery to till the fields and all that sort of stuff, and you know take care of the animals. That would have been a sun up to sundown endeavor. The only people who would have had time to develop martial arts would have been people who had leisure time, hence the nobles, the people of the Ryukyu kingdom. They would have been the one who practiced karate, and they were definitely not going to fight the Japanese samurai. The myth, part of that comes from the myth that the weapons that they used came from farming tools, and that's just not true. Most of those weapons actually came from the Philippines. All of those classical Japanese, classical Okinawan weapons, which now are known as kabuto, after they got separated from modern karate, most of those weapons came from the Philippines. The nunchaku, the sai, the tanfa, all those sorts of things. Um, but yeah, so that was another one. Then there was myths about the samurai as well, that they have female samurai. That was just bullshit. They called, which they refer to as the onabogeisha. No, there wasn't. There was the onamusha, which they weren't. I mean, you could call them warriors, but they weren't warriors because they did not go to war. These were the these were the family members, typically the wives and daughters of samurai who trained in classical martial arts to protect the homes when the men were away at war. So they were trained in classical martial arts, including like the halberd called the naginata, which is like a long it's a like a long staff with a with sort of like a sword at the end of it. That's the best way to explain it. You may have seen it if you watched the Shogun on Hulu. Um, Excellent show, by the way. I recommend it. It was really good. It was for it to be a fictional account of feudal Japan in the Edo period. Uh, it got a lot of things right historically, except for the ninja thing. But you know, he couldn't resist the ninja thing, and that was the second part of the samurai myth. was that they were ninjas. And I said, no, they really weren't. What people could refer to as ninja were just samurai who carried out the things that are normally ascribed to ninjas, which is like assassinations and espionage and intel gathering. Samurai did that. That wasn't beneath them to do that at the behest of their lord or their daimyo, um, which went into the third myth of samurai, which is that they adhered to the code of Bushido. The code of Bushido didn't exist among samurai. that was that was literally propaganda created by the imperial Japanese government in the early 20th century after a Japanese guy raised in and educated in Europe made a book on a Japanese code of chivalry. So he took the medieval European chivalry of European knights and made and basically turned it into a Japanese version and wrote a book on that. And this was used as propaganda amongst the imperial Japanese government of the early 20th century. But there was no code of Bushido among samurai. They had their own ethics, but there was no strict code of Bushido as we know it today. They weren't out there comport, uh, you know, doing seppuku because 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 they disappointed their lord. If anything, they would have went out of their way not to end their own lives. The only time they would have ended their own life was to keep from being slaughtered by the enemy, but not because they offended their lord or something like that. It was BS. And and if people are thinking about it, the Yakuza, the Japanese mafia, did not arise out of the samurai either. So that's bull. Um, then I went to a bunch of other myths. Um, I went into how Aikido is not a fighting art. It was always meant to be something more spiritually inclined by its founder, Morihei Yeshiba. It was not meant to be a fighting art, no matter how much you see Steven Seagal out for justice and marked for death and hard to kill. He's full of it. He's blended other martial arts into what he does, which is Bushido. and the way they throw people and take people down isn't even effective. If anyone has ever taken grappling, if anyone's taken wrestling or judo or Brazilian jiu-jitsu, you know that the way they throw people in Aikido doesn't even make sense. The whole myth that they throw people from that long distance between each other is to avoid swords doesn't make sense, because anyone who has practiced grappling while using weapons know is better to come closer to the person who has a weapon, not farther from them where they can actually engage you with it. If you come inside their arm's length, then they can't really deploy those weapons against you. People notice when they take like tactical firearm training or knife fighting stuff like that. Um, People are more dangerous from a distance. So the whole throwing people from a distance, the way they do in Aikido, just doesn't make sense. Whether you're talking about a sword or not a sword, because if they did have a sword, that'd be all the more reason to get in closer. Um, the whole thing about um, horse dances and jump kicks using to being taught to knock people off a horse is just BS. Jump kicks didn't come from having the ability to knock people off of a horse. Jump kicks came from the fact that modern karate was blended, got its high kicks and jump kicks from a French kickboxing style called savate, which I do. La boxe française. Um, so that's just BS. That the horse dances were basically just meant to was for leg were just for leg strengthening exercises. It was not meant so that you could ride a horse and knock someone off like that. No, that's just not true. The so many BS. Same thing with the breaking boards. The breaking boards wasn't a thing to show to practice cracking through a samurai's armor. That that was just that was just a game to show how good you are with your skills. It was never meant. It was never meant to be able to crack through a samurai's armor. That's just BS. It, it was just a it was a game of a game of it was a feat of skill. That's all it was. Practicing katas are a bunch of bullshit. The katas were not meant to be a key to a bunch of hidden skills that you had to learn by practicing a kata and then interpreting it through what they call bunkai. Bunkai is how you supposedly interpret the original meaning of these katas, where the 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 techniques in them are now unknown. What happened is kata was originally just a way of practicing was just basically just a way of rehearsing the techniques you've already learned. The problem was when Okinawan karate was evolved into modern karate, a lot of the original grappling techniques were taken out of that style, so but they were still practiced within the katas. That's it. But it shows the katas are a waste of time. Um, and I could do a whole thing about Jeet Kune Do and Bruce Lee. That and I actually might actually do a live stream on that. But that's just BS. Um, so I talked about ninja, samurai. Um, oh, then there's the whole thing that between internal kung fu and external kung fu. The internal kung fu showed you how to use your chi energy, where external kung fu just relied on muscle strength. That's just BS. The difference between external kung fu and internal kung fu is the internal kung fu dealt more with grappling. External kung fu more dealt with striking skills. That's the difference. But as internal kung fu lost its effectiveness because they no longer used it and they no longer actively practiced it in the environment where they could actually pressure test it, they start relying on the myth that, oh, this is it's only effective once you learn your chi energy, which is just another way of saying this shit doesn't work. That's what it means. Um, sorry, Tachi is good for an exercise for a person who lacks a lot of mobility in his limbs, but otherwise, it is not going to help you do self defense. I had to tell my father that too, who you would think would know better, but well, my father's full of shit anyway, but that's a whole different subject. But yeah, he was like, yeah, this, Tachi, blah, blah, blah. I was like, Dad, that's, come on. He's like, I can introduce you some Tachi masters and they can show you how it works. I'm like, I'd be more than happy to meet them, but I'm pretty sure they're not going to be able, they, they, nothing they're going to do is going to defend them against me practicing Muay Thai on them. Like, if I'm, if they beat me, then I'll be soundly corrected. Otherwise, no. Um, but and there's a lot of bullshit about kung fu. That's just one of them. And I already said the other one. The other myth was that that all kung fu stems from Shaolin. No, it doesn't. Well, that all Asian martial arts starts from Shaolin, which is also bullshit. No, it doesn't. Um, but you have all these hundreds of styles within China of kung fu, and I think aesthetically they're really dope to like practice just for the acrobatic skills and the aesthetic skills. But as far as thinking they will actually help you in a fight, no, they absolutely not. They're not. The key to any effective martial art is pressure testing. If once a style stops pressure testing their 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 techniques, it's no longer effective. Pressure testing comes through competition and sparring. And you find out once you pressure test a martial art, they're going to look one of two ways. Any striking, any sort of striking art, once you start pressure testing it, it's going to start looking like kickboxing. Any grappling style, once you start pressure testing it, it's going to start looking like wrestling. So, anyway, and China does have a very effective martial art called Sanda. which is was developed, or I think originally for the military, and it took elements of traditional kung fu, Muay Thai, and Western boxing and blended them into one style. Unlike um, other forms of kickboxing, though, they allow grappling in Sanda, which is cool. Now, Muay Thai allows grappling as well, but it doesn't allow you to go to the ground. In Muay Thai, they have clinch work. This is why Muay Thai is not the same as kickboxing, and a lot of people confuse the two. Muay Thai is leagues ahead of kickboxing, at least American kickboxing. But in Muay Thai, you can grapple people standing upright, which is what we call clinch work. You can elbow and knee people as well. You can sweep them, you can throw them, you can take them down. But you can't go to the ground in Muay Thai. In Sandai, you can. Um, but Sanda is a really effective art, of course. Um, the whole thing about chi energy is just BS. I don't even want to go into that again. That no grown person should be believing that you can throw energy balls at people or do touchless knockouts by way of people like George Dillman. If you don't know who he is, look up George Dillman. He is like the godfather of martial arts fakery. But yeah, no grown man should be believing that you can throw energy balls like Goku, or Ryu and Ken. Like, no, that's not real. Shouldn't have to even. I'm not going to spend time on that. Moving on. um, uh, when people asked about, well, how tough is Jet Li and all this sort of stuff, I'm like, Jet Li was not a fighter. He does wushu, and in interviews himself, Jet Li describes wushu as sort of like combat dancing. That's the best way to describe like wushu. Wushu is like combat dancing. It's not meant to be used in for the means of self-defense or fighting, which is exactly its intention when during the Cultural Revolution, I believe in the 50s or 60s. um, Chairman Mao outlawed a lot of kung fu, but he loved Chinese martial arts, so he didn't want it to be eradicated completely, which is why he commissioned the creation of wushu, which took elements of many of these traditional kung fu styles, but took the combative elements out of it and made wushu. Wushu is beautiful to look at, and it's, you know, it takes a lot of acrobat, a lot of like athletic ability to do it effectively. But outside of how nice it looks, it's not actually a fighting style. It's not effective. If you actually want to learn a Chinese martial art that is effective, you take Sanda, Sanda, Sanda. It used to go by a different name because I was almost going to compete in it many moons ago, but I left my school to go back to college before I could get that chance to compete. So, oh well. Any case, so these were many of this I mentioned in the previous live stream, and there were several others as well, um, which all gets into McDojos. What is a McDojo? So I was telling a friend this, and he's the one who encouraged me to do a live stream on this. A McDojo is any sort of typically an American. Well, no, I'm not going to even limit to an American martial arts because there's plenty of McDojos across the globe, not just in America, but it's typically a martial arts school that either teaches martial arts that are very low in quality. Um, the teacher doesn't himself have much skills or credit or any sort of credibility in that in the art that he's um, purportedly teaching, or the school or the teachers, the instructors, um, are, rather abusive to their students. But usually the telltale sign of a McDojo, at least in America, and probably other places as well. But one of the telltale signs of a McDojo is that you go there and you see a bunch of kids with you see a bunch of kids there, and not only that, these kids have like black belts. If you go anywhere and you see in a bunch of kids under the age of 13 with black belts, it's a McDojo. I don't care. I know that offends a lot of instructors. A lot of these martial arts YouTubers have schools where they teach little kids. And teaching little, look, let me be clear, teaching children does not make your school a McDojo. What makes it a McDojo is either A, all the students are kids, which means by the time they by the time they reach a certain age, they lose interest in that school, or again, that um when these kids already have black belts, it's like no one's gonna takes that seriously. Like if I go to a school and a 9 year old has a black belt, I'm not taking that place seriously. Now there are it depends. Now some schools what they will do is they have a two-tiered belt system. The two-tiered belt system is that the kids have a system whereby they have black belts and there's a separate tier system for the adults. So say you train there and you get a black belt at the age of 11 or whatever, but once you cross over to 13 or 14, then you have to train again to get a black belt for an adult. What you did as a child doesn't count towards that belt, which makes sense. I typically see that in taekwondo. I don't know if they do that in karate. As far as kung fu isn't supposed to have belts anyway because the belt is actually a Japanese system and Korean system, since a lot of those Korean martial arts stem from those Japanese martial arts. But typically, that's another thing. If you come to a kung fu school and they have belts, walk away. If you go to a if you go to an MMA gym or a Muay Thai gym and the people doing Muay Thai have belts, go. The only reason people in MMA should have belts is because they have belts in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. They should not have belts for Muay Thai. You do not get belts in Muay Thai. People in Muay Thai in Thailand do not use belts. The way to tell people's um, level of expertise over there is through competition and competition alone. And once a person has fought for a significant amount of time, they usually retire from fighting and go on to coach because I think like the average fighting career is what 5 years, something like that. It depends because some of them start really early. They actually outlawed the children competition under because they were having before children under 10 years old compete. Supposedly they banned it, but I still see them letting them fight. Although now when I see those fights, they're not like brutal or anything. It's like the kids are sort of just like playing. So I don't have a really don't have a problem with that, but I don't think that counts as professional fights for the kids because like the kids are like 6, 7, 8 years old, and it just looks cute with them fighting. But I don't think that counts towards their professional career. As far as professional career, I'm nowadays I think it's like I hope over the age of 12, like 13 and so on. And like I said, typically a fighting career over there might last 5 at most 10 years. I mean, you have a few people, and again, these are the exceptions. People like Sanchai and Bukal, who have gone on to have 30 plus, who've had like careers spanning like 30 years. They are the exception that proves the rule that most people don't have long careers in Muay Thai. Um, Besides that, both Sanchai and Bukal were smart enough to know to extend their career. They started fighting outside of Thailand because the people they fought outside of Thailand typically are easier are easier opponents than in Thailand. People in Thailand are hungry and they're going to fight hard, which leads to a lot of injury and pain, which again leads to shorter fighting careers than in respective other combat sports. So both of them have extended their careers quite long through fighting outside of Thailand in places like Europe and America, where, let's be real, their opponents are inferior to them. Um, and now they still fight, but now it's just mostly that their fights are mostly demonstrations. They've even fought each other. And I think the two times they fought, Bukal won both times. Although I still prefer Sanchai, but whatever. But yeah, if you go to a Muay Thai gym or a kickboxing gym and the people have belts, run. Kickboxing doesn't have belts. Muay Thai doesn't have belts. Now, if they are training in another art in that gym, they might have belts for that, like Brazilian Jiu Jitsu or karate, because a lot of people in MMA and kickboxing may also take up Kyokushin karate, which is supposed to be a more aggressive style of karate. From what I've seen, I'm not impressed because to me it doesn't make sense. They don't allow people to punch to the head to the face to stave off some of unnecessary injury and brutality, but they still allow them to kick to the head. Kicks to the head are way more savage than punches to the face. That 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 rationale doesn't make sense to me. It just makes you unprepared for a real fight where most likely the thing that a person is going to do to you in any given fight is try to punch you in the face, not kick you in the head. Most people don't even have the leg, the 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 suppleness required to kick someone in the head unless they already unless they're already kneeled over. So um, I don't know, but I'm gonna keep this short. So anyway, the McDojos are inferior martial arts schools. Too many American martial arts schools fall into the McDojo category because it is a proven way of making money for American martial arts teachers where they cater to mostly teaching children. That's their most loyal customer base. And and one of the things they do to do so is they will water down. Hold on, let me check my chat filter here, guys. It's okay because it's unusually unchatty here. Oh, just a dude says, "Hey man, he said if you want to crack armor, just use a hammer, right?" Well, they did used to be war hammers, but anyway, so these McDojos, like I said, typically cater to children, and one of the things they do, they typically water down effective martial arts. Karate used to be way more brutal in the 70s and 80s than what it was today. However, there's, I don't, however, one of the things I will say is that I don't, I think we give, some of these people give way too much credit to karate back in the 70s and 80s saying, oh, it was much more effective back then. That's not true. I don't necessarily think it was better back then. I think what it was is more people were unaccustomed to knowing how to fight someone who did karate. So um, when if you know something that your opponent doesn't, you have the edge. When Brazilian jiu-jitsu first came out, when the Gracie brothers first brought Gracie jiu-jitsu onto the public stage, they were winning these UFC fights because no one had encountered Gracie jiu-jitsu before. On and on top of that, they highly selected whom they fought. They tended to select people who were not trained in submission fighting to go against them. Once they started competing against other people who could do submission fighting like them, such as like Frank Shamrock and his brother Ken Shamrock, who started off in Japanese shoot fighting. They found themselves rivals because the people were trained in shoot fighting knew how to do submission fighting, just like people in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, which at that time was still known as Gracie Jiu Jitsu. Agatha, what's up? She says, "Hey, good night, sir." Um, but and if you look at it now, like the Brazilian Jiu Jitsu that's around today, they would smoke the Gracie brothers today because they've had decades of training against other people who were just as skilled as they were, whereas the Gracies had the unfair advantage of going against people who were completely unfamiliar with what they did. Um, and then I mean, and they made their bones in Brazil by beating up capoeira people. Like, big deal. Like anyone can beat up capoeira people. Like capoeira was not a fighting art. Capoeira was a tradition came from a African fighting arts that was watered down into basically dancing so that they could practice it in secret. In this in Brazil during the times of slavery, but it lost all of its effectiveness that way because they no longer pressure tested it through sparring and competition. They can only just practice techniques through rhythmic dancing. That's not a good. That's not a good way of retaining a martial art. I guarantee if you took Muay Thai and turned it into a rhythmic dancing, it would completely lose any and all of its effectiveness. And Muay Thai and BJJ is being watered down nowadays to teach it to younger students in America, so that these I don't want to blame the instructors so much as I want to blame the system, but I still find them at fault when they mess up arts by trying to water it down to teach it to kids and their little suburban moms. Like again, a telltale sign that you're at a McDojo is the only people training there are kids and women. I know that sounds horrible, but I'm not here. I'm not here to be nice. I'm just here to warn you guys what a McDojo, how to spot a McDojo. If you go to a martial arts school and the only people you see training there are little kids and women, is a McDojo. Krav Maga. Most Krav Maga schools are McDojos. Why? Because they don't spar. They don't compete. They teach these little dumbass drills and promote how dangerous it is because it came from the Israeli Defense Forces. So what? The truth about Krav Maga is it was not originally a style. Krav Maga was just whatever hand-to-hand training that the Israeli instructors were teaching their recruits at the time to instill confidence in them. It wasn't meant to be a fighting art. That's but when they came here, that's how they promoted it. But Krav Maga was literally anything that the instructor wanted to teach them. And again, if you go to mostly any Krav Maga school across America, it's mostly a bunch of suburban moms who think now they can defend themselves because they had some lion ass coach telling them how lethal they are now, till they get their ass beat on the street. Wait, all I got is huh 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 huh, gun disarm. Oop, oh, didn't work, did it? Say hi to Saint Peter for me. I know that's wrong. I'm, the reason I say because Krav Maga teaches a bunch of gun disarms, which is also completely BS. Gun disarms don't work, guys. Like at best, they work 50% of the time. At best, but anything that works at best 50% of the time means it's completely random. Like it, you you should never rely on something that only works 50% of the time. That doesn't make sense. If you had to go to the bathroom and you had to go, would you trust a toilet that only works 50% of the time? I'm just saying. I, I don't know. They have a plunger ready. But I know uh, that's a harsh analogy. But anyway, Krav Maga, a lot of Krav Maga schools are McDojos. A lot of Kempo schools are McDojos. I know people are like, how dare you talk about Kempo? Ed Parker was the grandmaster and founder of American Kempo. He revolutionized American. Save it. Ed Parker, I'm gonna try to be nice. His style of Kempo is, at least back in Japan, considered bullshit. Yes, he invented it because he basically just took bits and pieces of things, and then he kept changing the wording. Like he called it American Kempo, then he called it Chinese Kempo. When he died, they there was factions within the Ed Parker Kempo system of how it's taught between people like Joe Palazzo and all these other guys. Most of those Kempo schools are McDojos. Oh, thanks, Amanda. Um, most of these, most of those Kempo schools are McDojos. I'm sorry. One of my friends used to go there, and he was showing me all his moves, and it would be like one technique would be like 50, like, and I'm not even lying, like 10, 20 moves and combined in one. And I was like, dude, when are you gonna ever do exercise all those moves on the street? He was like, he's like, he's like, we do all these moves in one technique as a sort of overkill because we're going to get you with some of them. I'm like, that's not how you fight. That doesn't make sense. That's not how that's not how you do. That doesn't make sense whatsoever. I was like, yes, you guys had your bright moment back in 1991 when Perfect Weapon came out with Jeff Speakman, which was his only good movie, by the way. He had like five movies and all of them sucked except for Perfect Weapon, which was like the only good one. If you haven't seen it, go treat yourself. Just the Perfect Weapon was actually a good movie, and it's like classic '90s, early '90s type of film. And I like Jeff Speakman. He seems cool, and I think he was one of Ed Parker's original students. But what he did, like again, the martial arts that look the best on screen are usually the least effective in real life. And like I said, Kempo, a lot of those Kempo schools are McDojos. You're not hitting. If one technique can comprise of 10 to 20 actual movements, that's not going to work. That no one's going to sit there and just let you slap them up 15, 20 times in one move. I don't care how fast you're doing it, which isn't going to be that fast because most of the people I've seen doing Kempo tend to be out of shape. I'm going to keep it a buck. Most of the people I see doing Kempo are out of shape. Are there a few that are like in shape? Yeah, absolutely. There's some who are actually like legit like fit. However, um, they don't practice conditioning, which is something you normally only see in combat sports like boxing and kickboxing and Muay Thai and MMA and Lethwei and Sanda, um, and so on. All the combat sports, they emphasize strength and conditioning. Most of these traditional arts don't. But yeah, a lot of Kempo schools are McDojos. And again, I'm going to keep reiterating this. A telltale sign of any McDojo is that the only people training there are kids and women. And again, there's nothing wrong with either women with either children or women training at a martial arts facility. The problem is when that's all you see. If you don't see grown men training there, that's because they've already ascertained that it's not a useful place to go. Hence, a McDojo. And again, these McDojos will typically, a lot of these McDojos function as glorified daycare centers. Some of them literally will have buses that come and pick up the children that bring them to their little dojos right after school. They're like literally daycare centers. So some of them act as de facto daycare centers, but some of them literally are. Like there's a place around my way. It, it might have shut down because I haven't seen that bus in a few years, but they literally had like a little short bus, which is even more embarrassing. Like I don't want to get kicked up. I, I don't know. Maybe it's for like really little kids. But I know if I'm like, even if I was like 9 or 10, I would not want to be getting picked up on some little short bus to go to the karate training and daycare center. I'm guessing this was for like 5 and 6 years, like people like 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, because at 8, 9, and 10, I would be embarrassed to get on the little short bus to go to karate. They was like, "Oh, did your little did your little short bus come to pick you up today to get take you to karate? You gonna do your special karate? Huh? You gonna do your special karate? Do you guys wear a helmet while you train?" Like, they, I'm sorry, I could not take this seriously when I used to see that little little white bus saying karate. I think it said like karate training and daycare center. Like, wow. And that's so again, that's a classic McDojos that they function as glorified daycare centers. And again, it's not much better if there's only adult women training there too, because let's face it, adult women aren't made for fighting. I guess as I had a friend that takes her kids to karate classes. That's no problem. It's not really a big issue. And here's another thing: McDojos aren't bad for kids. Actually, they can be really good for kids. It gives them something to do after school, gets them out of their parents' hair, so that the parents can, go on, go to work or do whatever they got to do in the evening before they pick up the kids. Um, and it's a if someone wants to put their kids in martial arts, I would say take them to a McDojo. Like usually, the McDojo is probably the easiest place to find to take a kid to school. Like you shouldn't be unless a kid has a very specific taste on what they want to learn, which is not most of them. Most of them, at least when I was a kid, everyone just wanted to be a Ninja Turtle. So when I went to Kim's Karate, they literally would just say, "Okay, guys, we about to show you a new Ninja Turtle move that they did in the movie," and everyone tension would be all on the sensei because he's like, "All right, we're gonna teach y'all one of those moves from the Ninja Turtle movie," and we all like, "Oh, okay." So, but yeah, McDonald's are great for kids because like it gives them structure, something to do. Unless these kids are stupid, but that's neither here nor there. But McDonald's are McDonald's are fine for little kids. We're talking about for us grown folks. Okay, so I want to separate that. There's nothing wrong with McDonald's for kids, as long as it's not an abusive McDojo. Because I said another type of McDojo is the kind where they actually are abusive to their students. Everyone should avoid those sorts of schools. I I don't sometimes agree with calling that McDojo, but the guy who runs McDojo Life, he considers those sorts of schools McDojos. I just consider them places you shouldn't even train, because for me, a McDojo is just a place of low quality. It doesn't necessarily mean that the people are abusive, but I guess that by definition would also make it a low quality place. So I get why he includes that. So for purposes here, I'm going to include that as a McDojo. But like I said, for the most part, McDojos are perfectly fine to bring your kids as long as it's not an abusive McDojo where the instructors are abusing the kids in any sort of way, or their adult students. No one should be getting abused at a at a martial arts school. Which brings me to another aspect of McDojos: abuse of students. So if students are always coming from the school with bruises and injuries, that is a McDojo. And I had to explain this to my friend as well. I was like, because he was telling me how brutal they was with the sparring. I was like, they don't know how to spar at your school, bro. Because I was like, look, and I was like, this typically happens at karate and taekwondo places because they don't know how to spar. I was like, the par- the prac- the purpose of sparring is training so that both people can get a feel for like footwork and distance and actually landing blows on each other. This is the purpose of sparring. You're not supposed to be hurting each other. You save that for competition. Typically, combat sports and martial arts geared towards competition would make sure that they're not injuring each other prior to competition. But since most of these McDojos don't actually ever compete, they try to show how tough they are by some overly aggressive sparring. It's like no one should be coming from sparring with a busted, with like a broken rib, um, a black eye, a busted nose, a missing tooth. Like some accidents happen, which is why they make you sign liability forms. But you should be wearing sparring gear, and no one should be going all out during sparring. If an instructor sees someone going all out in sparring, it's their duty to break that apart and say, "Hey, you guys need to simmer down." And if it's one guy going harder on the other opponent, he needs to sit that guy out and say, "All right, oh, you want to train? Oh, you want to spar hard? All right, you want to spar with me now," and then show him the error of his ways. But hard, there is a time and place for hard sparring, but that is when both that's one when both opponents have agreed to it, and two when both of them have a high enough skill level that they know that they can hard spar without injuring each other. But people should not be having like broken ribs, busted teeth, black eyes, but broke, or having to go to the emergency room as a matter as due to sparring. Um, I think the first school I went to was definitely a McDojo, just because it mostly catered to kids, not because it was abusive. But there was like a time when I came to class, and for whatever reason, no other student showed up but me. So the instructors there just took turns throwing me. This was judo, so they literally just spent the whole hour and a half just throwing me. They didn't teach me any moves. They just threw me. I'm pretty sure that would not fly today, at least in most American schools. Now, I've seen something like that happen over in Taiwan like 2 years ago, where they injured a lot of students. But that would not fly here. Like this is the 80s though. I'm pretty sure that would not be allowed. And then when I wanted to start karate, um, my stepfather took me to a school, and they had weight training there, and the dojo. So it was like a combined fitness gym and karate center. And the instructor was telling my stepfather, he's like, "Well, yeah, we train pretty hard here." He was like, some of our, he said sometimes he said you might see the kids come out of here, they're gonna have bruises, black eyes, maybe a bust every once in a while, a broken bone. He was like, but we want to maintain, we want to make the kids tough. And I didn't know what to think at the time. I was like both horrified and excited to go there, but my stepfather decided not to let me go. You could you could only get away with saying something like that in the 80s. Like this was like some straight up Cobra Kai shit. Like you, uh, most parents would not be like, yeah, you going to this place after the teacher just said I'm gonna come up there with broken bones and bruises every day. Like that's that's not healthy. But again, that's the way they used to train in karate in a lot of these facilities back then before they gentrified them. And again, I don't think it's particularly good because you shouldn't be getting injured through 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 practice like that unless it's like really intense training. But as a beginner, it shouldn't be that intense. Um, but I don't know. I was surprised not to have more questions on that on this matter. I'm guessing some people were expecting me to like do some sort of martial arts tricks or whatever. I'm not doing that. Like if somebody wants to see something again, I implore them to look at my other videos, or hey, you can always drop me a super chat or a super sticker if you want to ask me a specific question on doing a particular technique. But other than someone dropping um, you know, a super chat or a super sticker, I'm not going to just perform. Like if you're gonna if you learn something from me, pay me for my time. Like Dennis Sperling says, pay me for my time. I'm not gonna do stuff for free. Um, that's no, that's not happening. So if people want to see some techniques, they wanted me to answer a question that was outside of the original circle of discussion, then pay me for my time if you want to learn something. I think that's fair because a lot of content creators put a lot of work into this, and they should be rewarded for their efforts. So I'm not even e-begging. It's just saying, hey, if you want to learn something from me, you're gonna pay for the time. Otherwise, you'll get what you get through this content. And again, I do have other videos up of me actually practicing martial arts. I have a very small snippet of what I did at a gym in Thailand at Venom training camp. I have a snippet of me training in Pencak Silat over in Bali. I have Actually, I don't have any video footage of me doing modern arnis in the Philippines, but I have some pictures up in my community post where you can see me um, interacting with the instructors and students in Manila uh, at Rizal Park. What else? Oh, and I have some stuff of me here in America, like um, some doing a Jikondo drill and messing around with like the speed bag, stuff like that. But I will be putting up more martial arts related content of me training and stuff like that. I had a video where I was going to show me sparring with this Kyokushin folks, and my cousin never uh, converted his video footage um, so that I could put it on here. Most of it was pretty bad, and I was going to actually just show it in a way to give people a lesson and why, um, how to avoid certain places because they were all over the place. I don't I don't know enough of them about the dojo to definitively call it a McDojo, but they want some BS. Like they taught Kyokushin karate, but they were also like showing me stuff from Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, which had nothing to do with what I came there for in the first place, which was just to demonstrate my talent to them. In the effort that the guy was going to put me in connection with some folks he knew in the in the fighting world and in Hollywood that he allegedly knew. I don't I don't know how true that is. And he wanted me to, I guess, address him as sensei or shihan because he had a seventh degree black belt. I had no problem calling him sensei or whatever, but tell me that in advance. Don't just expect me to address you that way when I don't come from that style of martial arts. So um, it was just a lot of fugaziness that came with it. But I don't want to say that they're McDojo. I guess for what they taught their students, it was probably cool. I wouldn't teach my kids that way, but then I wouldn't teach Kyokushin karate anyway, because I think most karate is ineffective unless, again, they spar and compete. Now, his school does spar and compete, but from what I ascertained from his training, they get their effectiveness not from Kyokushin karate itself, but they like to blend elements of MMA with what they teach. But then why I don't respect that though is that they only compete in karate tournaments though. It's like, yeah, that's not you don't get any extra points for making for teaching more aggressive techniques to karate students to compete in karate. So whatever. Um, they want me to come back, but if I do, um, I would definitely make sure that I videotape it myself. Well, I'll have someone with me who actually videotapes it for you guys to check out. But I guess since I'm not really getting anyone asking me any questions, I'm about to go. It's already late. I see no point in keeping this going unless I'm going to get some sort of questions or feedback about this. Um, Let me see something. Give me just a hot few seconds, guys. But check something out here. Um, okay. So anyway, I'm back. So does anyone who's watching currently have any questions? If people are watching this broadcast on replay, you can also ask me questions in the comment section as well. Feel free. Um, but anyone who's actively watching, I only see a few people active in the live stream currently. For you folks, do you guys have any questions specifically about martial arts, or what separates a McDojo from a quality martial arts school, or um, if you have any questions of a place you've been to, whether it's a McDojo or not? Hey, Kat, what's up? But yeah, so curious if anyone has any questions about, um, what a McDojo is, how to avoid them, are they worth going to? Like I said, not all McDojos are completely bad. Like I said, McDojos are usually per the usual for most kids, except for the abusive ones. Like I said, don't no one should train at an abusive McDojo, but McDojos, as insofar as like they're just like glorified daycare centers, they're fine for little kids. Like that might be their first experience in martial arts. Same with me. When I was 7, my parents didn't give me a decision. They said you got to go to martial arts. You either have to take judo or karate, and you got to learn how to swim. I'm like, okay. So they wanted me to learn how to defend myself and be able to swim, which is good because a lot of black kids don't learn how to swim. That is a true stereotype because a lot of them live in the hood where they don't have access to go swimming, except maybe the public pool, which is a cesspool. But in any case, so they made me go, and I actually started liking it. So then I ended up continuing on and learning more and more. Now I'm just in the pursuit of uh I guess you could call me an expert in a very unconventional sense because I've been doing this for so long. But right now I'm just I would guess I would be satisfied with getting some credentials in a few of the arts that I've practiced for a long time. Because most of them I've never stuck around long enough to get my certification, just enough to become proficient in them. So that would be my next step, if I get the chance. If not, so be it. I'm fine. But I would like to do that. And if I do, I would definitely put it on here for you guys to see. But either way, I will put up more martial arts content. And I still have a overdue um Jikondo kickboxing video I wanted to put up. It's not going to be me teaching people Jeet Kune Do kickboxing. It's going to be just me doing um, my shadow boxing routine, and people can check me out doing that stuff. I have some stuff already up on here. I have a sort of a modified Thai boxing routine that I have on my members only stuff. So if people want to check that out, they can. Uh, but yeah, it's Thai boxing. I say it's like modified because it's like literally me in a bedroom doing like really basic stuff. And the reason that, and now it looks very uh janky, but it's it's actually intentionally done so just to show. It's basically to show people who don't have any background in martial arts or very little how they could just practice in the comfort of their own bedroom, just working out every day. Because it's meant for the people who don't work out, to show them how easily they can easily just craft a shadow boxing routine out of, let's say, Muay Thai or kickboxing or whatever, and do it from the comfort of their own bedroom. They could do that for like, 10, 15, even 20 minutes of just working out and have a good workout at it. So that's the routine I have, and that's only available in my members only content. Maybe eventually I'll put it up for everyone to see, but for right now, that's only my members only content. And I think there was another training video I had there as well.
Okay. So, but if you want to see that, sign up for one of my memberships, guys. Very cheap. Starts at 199. Uh, you can have access to the members only stuff, and I'll make up other members only content as well. When I have more memberships, I have no problem making more content for members only. But I do have a few things up there as of right now. Or you can drop me a super thanks to show support. Um, all of that helps. Uh, you can send me a cash app or buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com. And if you can't do any of those, I understand. We're all living with tighter wallets than we used to in the past 4 years. I'll leave the politics out of it. But um, if you can't, show any support for my time, then just give me a like and a share and a subscribe. Definitely subscribe. It helps me grow the channel. And a like, showing people actually want to see the content, and share it to other people who might be interested in seeing the same stuff as well. And I'll definitely talk more about the martial arts stuff as well. I think I might delve into some stuff stemming around Jeet Kune Do and Bruce Lee, which I've talked about in the past. So I'm gonna do it again because sometimes you have to over communicate these sorts of things because so many people just don't know. And as much as I would assume that people know about this because I'm so well acquainted with it, it is definitely not true that most other people are. A lot of people know very little about those things dealing with Bruce Lee and his arts. Most of the stuff they do know comes from stuff they see on TV, from stuff they see on social media, and a lot of that is misinformative, even from the very people who claim to be from his estate. I won't go into specifics about that, but even people from his very own estate have sometimes perpetuated misinformation about him, which I understand because it's basically they're not doing it to preserve his arts. They were doing it to monetize his content for the perpetuation of his estate. Since when he died, a lot of people made money off his name, um, except for the people who were actually part of the family. So there had to be a big course correction in that. But I think it went too far. In any case, did anyone have any martial arts questions related to quality instruction or McDojos or anything like that? If not, I'm going to end this because it is late. Um, and if this too dry of I didn't think this would be too dry of a topic, but maybe it is for people. But I would think a lot of people would like to know more about McDojos. It's actually it's pretty funny stuff. If you go to I would recommend the martial arts channel, McDojo Life. He puts out a lot of stuff about McDojos and why it's so funny. Like I said, George Dillman is one of the funniest McDojo people. He's like the godfather of martial arts fakery. He had a whole style. Like he actually went into the black belt Hall of Fame using fake martial arts. He pretended he could do knockouts, touchless knockouts, guys. It sounds exactly what like is it describes exactly what it sounds like. Supposedly just this and like like and he would say it doesn't work and he would try to give ad hoc excuses for why it doesn't work on skeptics. He would say, well, the problem with the skeptics are if they don't believe with it, it messes up the flow of the chi. And or he would say, if if you resisting me, um it mis it his excuses are legendary. Like he literally said that if his tongue is in the wrong position in his mouth, he can't do the knockout. But if his tongue is on the other side, he can do the knockout. If he holds his thumb and curls his toe a certain way, it'll lead to a knockout, and then the other way. This guy is funny. Like I'm serious. or you have all the fake ninjas of the 80s. There was a white there was a white guy who pretended to be Asian for like a decade until people caught on to it, saying he was a ninja. He wrote a bunch of books and called himself Ashita Kim. All the while he is white to the white to the white of whitest white men, pretending to be a to pretending to be a Japanese guy who was a ninja master. I shit you not. And he wrote a bunch of books back in the 80s, in the early 80s, until people caught on to this. Well, again, this is not surprising. Like I said, George Dillman won black be, was elected into the Black Belt Hall of Fame doing fake martial arts. Like people, like the guy. So if people are familiar with that guy, Commander Dale or whatever from Dust Training in Detroit, he is just in a long line of fake martial artists that stems to the very beginning of martial arts. And like I said, the 70s and the 80s was just a hodgepodge of of kung fu fakery. Like I said, there's Shida Kim. Then there was this whole when the ninja craze arose in the 80s. Ashita Kim and a bunch of other people took advantage of it. There was a guy who formed. There was an actual Japanese guy who formed um, a martial arts school, claiming to be the grandmaster of ninjutsu. He claimed to be the oldest and only ninja instructor in the world. He said he was the 34th Soke of Togakuri Ryu Ninjutsu. Soke means grandmaster. And if he was the 34th grandmaster in an unbroken line of ninja masters, it would make his style older than most classical Japanese martial arts. And he claimed he even had scrolls to prove it, ninja scrolls, I guess from like anime, the ninja scrolls. So he has ninja scrolls to prove that he is the 34th Soke Grandmaster of Togekuri Ryu Iga Iga Mountain Ninjutsu. Except that he would not allow anyone to view these alleged scrolls to publicly verify them. So he's full of shit. And he's formed this whole martial arts school that called the Bunjinken Federation. So he wrote one or two ninja books, and then one of his top students was a white guy named Stephen K. Hayes. Ended up writing a bunch of books too, talking about his ninjutsu and all this sort of stuff. I read several of those books back in the 90s. Um, One of them even professed to show you the ninja mind, showing you all the ninja hand techniques. So if you guys ever saw Naruto when they're doing all the hand gestures to evoke their chi energy, although they don't call it chi in Naruto, they call it their whatever you call it. But um that's a real that's a real bullshit thing that that people do outside of anime, claiming to that ninjas do these 9 secret hand gestures to evoke secret powers. McDojo. uh, like I said, I've read several of those books, so I know um Aikido's. Now, let's see, Aikido is only McDojo if they're pretending that this is for self defense. If they're just saying, "Hey, this is a martial art geared towards, I don't know, spiritual. This is a martial art gearing you for this, gearing you towards a spiritual path, towards enlightenment or whatever." I have no problem with that. That's not a McDojo. A McDojo is when you pretend that Aikido can be used for effective self defense, which it is not. Have If you guys have never seen an Aikido demonstration, you really need to watch it again. Check out McDojo Life. Um, It's also this Filipino MMA fighter, Mark Mugen. I think that's his name, Mark Mugen, M-U-J-E. I mean Mugen. He shows a lot of McDojo stuff too. People get mad at him all the time saying, "Well, you're just not doing it correctly like they're showing in the video." He was like, "Folks, I'm just doing this to be funny." He said, "But even if I did it correctly like they were doing it, it would not work." And they don't get that. Um, Another good guy is good channel is Hard to Hurt with Icy Mike. Icy Mike is a former SWAT member, police instructor. So he's former law enforcement. He's a kickboxing coach. He's competed himself, not like professionally, but like street beefs and like semi-pro, I guess. I don't know what you would call that, but he's competed. He's taught, and he was a law enforcement officer, and he taught police officers, including SWAT. So he is the legit deal. He's probably my favorite martial arts YouTuber, or one of them. Jeff Chan is another one who's a former MMA fighter who's now an MMA coach and Muay Thai coach. Um, he gives good information. Uh, Jesse Enkamp, the karate nerd, is a good source for anything dealing with karate. Um, Although he did have Steven Seagal on his channel, and he didn't call Steven Seagal out on his bullshit, but of course he couldn't, because obviously Steven Seagal wouldn't have gone along with the interview if anyone called him out on his bullshit. So I understand. I noticed Jesse Enkamp will have people on his channel who are teaching some rather sketchy stuff, but Jesse Enkamp, being the gentleman that he is, will just go along with it, and he'll even like try to promote it in a way that makes it look like it's effective. If that's the I don't know if that's the nice way of putting it, but that's the nicest way I could put it. He will go along with rather dubious things that people are practicing to put them in a good light. Uh, but these are good. But again, these are good sources if you guys want to know more about McDojos versus quality instruction. People who are much more talented than I am, smarter, have are actual fighters, actual like certified instructors, um, have good fight IQ. Again, that's you have Hard to Hurt with Icy Mike. Um, you have MMA Shredded with Jeff Chan. Um, you have McDojo Life, uh, Mark Mugen. He's both on like Instagram and Facebook, and I think he's also on YouTube as well. I think I just saw him on YouTube as well. So I didn't know he was on YouTube at first. I didn't know he was a he. I thought all his content creation was like through Facebook and IG, but he's on YouTube as well. Um, Sensei Seth. I've warmed to him over the past 5 years. When I first saw him, honestly, I was like, oh no, he's just some karate dude, but not like karate dude like Jesse Enkamp, like karate dude like the way we picture people here in America typically, the stereotypical karate guy. But he's definitely warm to me. He's practiced like I think like 50 different martial arts on his channel so far. He is cool. He is really cool. Um, who else have I watched? What's the guy named Ramsey Dewey? I think I've watched him. Stephen Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, legit, definitely. Uh, it's other people. I just can't remember all of them. But those all of those that I've already mentioned are good places to start to get good quality instruction. Like these people know. Although I've trained longer than mostly all of them, they have had more quality time learning than I have. So they are certified instructors, certified former law enforcement, former military, and they know their stuff much better than I do. Um, so if you guys want to get know more, there you go. Since I'm not getting any feedback from anyone, but it, but I'll give it one last turn. So if anybody still wants to ask me any questions, they can. If not, I'm gonna check out. Maybe grab something to eat. Any takers for any questions? What is a McDojo? Um, Maybe people want to ask the place where they go or where they take their kid to go. Is it a McDojo? You got questions on that? And again, if you're watching this on replay, you can ask me that in the comment section too. I'll answer that. Um, People want to ask if a certain martial art is always a McDojo, and some, I'm going to be honest, some of them are. Like I said, ev- not all, but almost every Krav Maga school is a McDojo, just because they don't spar and they. It's not that they so not every martial. Just because a school doesn't practice effective fighting or self defense doesn't make it a McDojo. What would make it a McDojo is if they then pretend that what they do is effective. That's when it's a McDojo. Like I said, that's why it can be iffy when it comes to Aikido. If it's a traditional Aikido place and they're not making claims to teach you self defense or how to fight, they're just saying, "Hey, come learn Aikido." Is a It's a really great martial art for learning how to control one's body, learn the spiritual path, learn more about Zen and all that sort of stuff um, through physical exercise and combat. I would have no problem with that. It's it's the it's the Aikido places, a la Steven Seagal, that pretend we're gonna teach you how to kick ass. Like that's a big dojo. Or a Tai Chi place. But Tai Chi place is like, hey, we're just here to teach people who are less agile how to be physically active through combative moves. I don't have a problem with that. It's the ones that say, and this Tai Chi will teach you how to kick ass. This, that's full of it. Like my father, like he's saying, oh, Tai Chi. He's like, oh, this Tai Chi is some of these Tai Chi masters really know how to fight. I'm like, no, they can't, Dad. He's like, I'll let you train with them. You can see for yourself. I'm like, all right, I'll love to go see go check these guys out. I'll be respectful and do what they show me to do, but that doesn't mean it's going to convince me that they can actually fight. Like there's literally like tons of videos up of Tai Chi masters taking on people who do MMA or kickboxing, getting their asses beat. It doesn't work. Wing Chun, you're not off the hook either, because I forgot to mention that when I was talking about my myths from the other day. I mean, my martial arts history that is a lie. It started off with the lie that a Shaolin nun created the martial art um, for so it's geared towards smaller people, and that's why they always punch to the body and all that sort of stuff. I'm like, no, that's not true. It's just not true. I was like, there's no evidence that a Shaolin nun invented Wing Chun Kung Fu. What is true is that it's made for close quarter fighting, but it's not an effective style. And most people who train in Wing Chun, if they're honest with you, they will tell you Wing Chun does not work unless you learn something else alongside of it. For Wing Chun to be effective, you need to learn something alongside it, like boxing or Muay Thai. Same thing with Shaolin Kung Fu. Shaolin Kung Fu was not taught to be an effective fighting style. I don't care how many old kung fu movies you've seen, into the 36 chambers, return to the 36 chambers. Um, and the third one, I think it was the third one. All the Shaolin versus Lima, Shaolin versus Wu Tang. Like Shaolin Kung Fu is not useful for fighting. there's Chinese kickboxing, which some of the Shaolin people practice, which was actually used for fighting and self defense. But that itself is apart from sort of all the forms and stuff that they practice doing. It's like two different things. And most, if a Shaolin practitioner is honest with you, he'll tell you that it's not effective on its own. You have to actually learn something else like boxing or something to make it work. So I think that's it, guys. So I'm not getting any feedback here, and it could be lack of interest, bad timing, or uh, a due to my algorithm. I don't know. So I think I'm gonna end it here since I'm not getting any questions. But feel free to ask me those questions in the comment section if you're watching this on replay, or if you're currently watching this now but you just don't know what to ask. That's fine as well. Um, or if you had checked out my other video the other uh, the other day on why martial arts history is a lie, and you came to this one and then you decide to ask me a question, that's fine. That's it's all good. But again, to the people earlier on in the video saying, "Can you show us some techniques?" No, pay me for my time, and I'll definitely show you some techniques. All right, thanks, guys. I'm gonna end it here. Take care to everyone. Please like and subscribe and share the videos with others. That would help me a bunch. Even if you can't show me any other support, that would mean a lot. Seriously. Like I said, my goal for this year is 10,000 subs. I just got monetized last year after 2 years. So this is my third year. I would like to get to 10,000 subs without doing OnlyFans. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm not going to do that. Someone's going to oh, please don't snippet that and be like, you see what he said? No, I'm joking. I don't, I don't want anyone to cut that part out and be like, and use that against me. I'm clearly joking. Besides that, I don't even think. Well, I'm sure there are guys on OnlyFans. I know that people were making fun of the fact that Chris Brown is on there, but I don't think he's wilding out. I can't even say I don't know, but mm, I think most OnlyFan people are women because most people aren't going to pay to see a guy, even other guys. So um, it won't be doing that. But I do plan on expanding. Like um, I still have a second channel coming up, but my wife and I are still undecided what to do with the channel. It says Mrs. Contrarian, but we're undecided whether we're going to make it a channel about her or if it's going to be a channel just devoted to me doing like martial arts. So the channel has been up for a year now, but we haven't decided what we're going to do with the content on that channel yet. I was telling my wife she should utilize it since she has so much travel content that she puts on her personal social media. And I was like, you know, if you're gonna always show stuff like that, you should like get paid for it. Like you should get it monetized. But she's undecided about it, so we'll see. Either way, as far as this channel, Just A Contrarian, please drop me a like and a subscribe, share the video, and I appreciate it. Thank you.